By the way, when I said that was enough, I only meant for the first video, not the enough yet altogether. So I'm still quite early in chapter 3, and I think this is probably as good a time to make a suggestion that's not in the book. I'm just seeing, I think we're okay. Although we are physical bodies, this is page 43, near the bottom. Although we are physical bodies running on physiological processes, there emerges from these processes, and I don't think I used that verb, but that's a very, the idea of emergent properties, that as the brain becomes sufficiently complex, again with its central nervous system embodied in hominids and then Homo sapiens eventually, and that, by the way, that this is all God's creative process, which I again don't want to say that's an easy thing to affirm, or like it's just duh. It does require some rethinking, I think, about the nature of divine activity, about how God works, how God labors in creation. But I'm thinking it's worth the effort to try to think about those things and think through those things to the extent we're able. So they go on to say, there emerges from these processes a genuine efficacious kind of meaning effective or working, a genuine and efficacious mental life that we experience as thinking, deciding, remembering, feeling. So at the very bottom of 43, they go on to say, these aspects of the whole person that are emergent from the ongoing interplay of the parts, cells, neurons, neural systems, the brain. I can't really talk about any of that, but cannot be said to be properties of the parts themselves. That is, as these various parts, you might even, like even if you're wanting to talk about body, soul, and spirit, and I do know there are a few places, like in the New Testament, Paul will write, "May the God of peace sanctify you entirely," and sort of like keep you something, body, soul, and spirit. So the language is there. The question is, what does that language mean? And is it possible that if we think of these as discrete and different little like parts, that once you throw them all together and get the right mix, you have a human? This just seems like a dead end, honestly. Now, something that isn't in the book, but I'm going to throw out kind of as an experiment here. If we have an opportunity tomorrow in class, I might bring it up. I'm not sure. But for quite a while, I've kind of thought along these lines. Let me see if I can play it out for you. So let's use those typical terms: body, soul, and spirit. The first thing let's start with body. That's the obvious one. You can even see part of my body right here, and all that. And by the way, by interacting with me through this video, I'm quite certain that our authors would say this is one of those sort of moments, or at least an opportunity for extended cognition. In fact, before I even tell you what I was going to tell you, let me tell you the other thing I was going to tell you. It has struck me how often students, both in this class and certainly before now, have written in papers things like this. As we discussed in class, 2 weeks ago, I mean, it would be pertinent to this class, right, where we're doing these kind of papers. And I've noted very often that's interesting language, because the person writing it definitely didn't say anything in class. I mean, I know it. And I don't think I ever, if I ever did, I feel bad that I did, but I often thought, well, what did they discuss? As we discussed in our discussion in class. But now you see, I'm beginning to see a different angle on that. To be a part of such a discussion would not necessarily require you to talk. Now, I like it when you all talk, but now I'm beginning to see how, let's say I'm conversing with one student, But it isn't just a conversation with that one student, hopefully. It is a way in which you all are being drawn in cognitively to that conversation, and you actually become a part of that conversation. You might even in your head model like possible things you might say or would have said or could have said or wish you'd said, such that you actually are a part of the discussion. That seems to be a pretty direct implication of what they're writing in this book, and I like it. I like it. I also acknowledge that my training has been in the classic Western liberal individualist tradition, and we still do it at Point Loma, right? We, to the extent that we give grades to individual people at the end of the semester, and I know that I especially have not been one for collaborative learning or let's break into groups, and now they're going to make me rethink all that. I'm old. Maybe I can just hold out a little longer. But I'm really liking this concept of getting away from the idea that my mind is right in here and it's mine, and, you know, like it got me those A's back then, and da-da, you know, because here this is much more about sort of the relational, collaborative, what was some of, you know, extended cognition. That might be a better way to think about like what the difference between brain, which we know is lodged in our skulls. It's pretty safe to say that's the brain in there. But mind is something more than that. So even to the extent that at times I may have been tempted to, in my life, to reduce mind to brain, they're really helping me to think differently about that. And I like it. We're still going to give, you know, grades at the end of the semester according to how I grade your lonely, individualistically written paper, right? Now we got this whole AI thing, you know, coming down the pike. And by the way, I can generally tell, I can recognize, well, I'm not going to say I'm perfect at it, but I know a student's voice in writing, and I know when it's not a student's voice in writing, most of the time. Now, one other thing I wanted to share with you. See if I can do it in the next 5 minutes or so for this little mini lecture part here. So we are bodies. It's not a matter of just saying, you know, I have a body, because then the question would be, well, what's the I? If I say, well, the I is the soul. So the soul has a body. Is that really how I experience it? I think the Bible really pushes us toward a much more holistic understanding of the person. Let me give you a quick example of that. Paul, writing to the Romans in Romans 12, I beseech you, therefore, brothers and sisters, that you present your bodies. Present your bodies. Was Paul talking about just bodies? You know, like, you can leave your soul out of this, but present your bodies. I don't think so. He's meaning the whole person, your whole self. In fact, what's really cool is he says, present, and you might not know this, present your bodies. Yours, plural there, like y'all, you know, that kind of thing, possessive. Your bodies as a singular living sacrifice. Not present your bodies as a bunch of little sacrifices running around, you know, sacrificial lives offered up to God. But more in line with this book, as we'll see as they get more toward, you know, Christian life, offer your bodies, physical bodies, as a living sacrifice. It's all these bodies working together as one offering of sacrifice to God. And honestly, I think if you read the rest of Romans 12, what Paul is describing is what that collective bodily sacrifice life looks like. You know, you got stuff there about hospitality and weeping with those who weep, rejoicing with those who rejoice. Again, I think things that really fall in nicely with this book. Well, you are body. I am body. Not have body. I am body. What about soul? Well, similarly, it's not that I have a soul. I am a soul. Okay? Now, in the Hebrew, I think I've told you this before, the Hebrew term that does get translated soul is nephesh, which simply means that which is alive. It's not the Greek concept of an immortal soul. It's a body that's living. Okay? That's putting it simply, but I'm in the interest of time, that's what I'm going to do. So I am a body. I am a soul because I am a body that's alive. What about spirit? Do I have a spirit? No, I'm going to suggest you and I are spirits. I am spirit. Now, when I'm spirit, it's not like I'm no longer body. I'm still also body. I am body, soul, and spirit because these aren't different things. They're different. I'm going to say this. They're different terms to describe the human being in different kinds of relationship. So now I'm going to throw this out here to you really quick as an experiment. I am a body. And remember, one of the things they're emphasizing is relationality. So when I say I am a body, it's not like I'm a solitary body. Sorry, I'm getting warm in here. My space heater is actually working. I could turn it off, and I probably will soon. Shucks. I am a body in relationship to all other bodies. And this would actually be all other bodies in the universe, although my immediate experience is with bodies around me right now. None of the bodies that I can see, I'm sure there's some living bodies. Obviously, there's living bodies within me, too, much tinier. Think on that for a little while. But most of the bodies, the material bodies around me, like, the books behind me, and I've got some CDs up there and so on. I think I've showed you a couple shots of my little office here before. I love rocks. My other class knows how much I love rocks. Okay. These are bodies as well, right? They're not living bodies, but they are bodies. And I am a body in relationship. When I call myself a body, it's me in relationship to other bodies. Not a body all by myself somewhere, but body in relationship to other bodies. If there was another human being here, or if Coco were in here, obviously it would be, those also would be, elements of my bodily relationship. But for now, maybe we'll go with the guy that invented the, an alphabet for the Sequoia Indians. I think his name was, shoot, I should remember that. Maybe somebody in class knows. All I can think of is a guy whose name isn't correct. But I have a lot of admiration for this guy, if I can't remember his name. Yeah. I am body in relationship to other bodies. Let's stop there.